Gopi Jana Bala Bhai Giri Guru Dhari Pijanam Sundara Gopi Jana Bala Bhai Giri Guru Dhari Yama Sodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Ranjana Jamunatira Vanasyamadhi Jamunatira Vanasyamadhi Jaya Radha Madhava Madhava Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Pijana Vallabha Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Yamasodhanandana Prajajanuranjana Jamasodhanandana Prajajanuranjana Jamunatiram Vanamachamari Jamiram Vanamachamari Jai Sabi Asadi Ma Jai Ma Madhava Yavi Bharati Amamri Paramahamsa Parivajakacharancha Astatara Satasi Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Gaur Premanandi. Text 22, correct? 1:9:22. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Sarasatim Vyasam tato jayam udhirayet. So text 22. Tatapyekanta bhakteshu pasyabupanukampitam yanme syum jajatak sakshad Krishno darshanam agataha tatapyekanta bhakteshu pasyabupanukampitam Yanme sum jajatak saksha Krishna darshanam agataha. Yet despite his being equally kind to everyone, he has graciously come before me while I am ending my life, for I am his unflinching servitor. Purport. The Supreme Lord, the Absolute Personality Godhead, Sri Krishna, although equal to everyone, is still more inclined to his unflinching devotee who is completely surrendered and knows no one else as his protector and master. Having unflinching faith in the Supreme Lord as one's protector, friend, and master is the natural condition of eternal life. A living entity is so made by the will of the Almighty that he is most happy when placing himself in a condition of absolute dependence. Paragraph. The opposite tendency is the cause of fall down. The living entity has this tendency of falling down by dint of misidentifying himself as fully independent to lord it over the material world. The root cause of all troubles is there in false egotism. One must draw towards the Lord in all circumstances. Final paragraph. The appearance of Lord Krishna at the deathbed of Bhishma Ji is due to that's Bhishma, being an unflinching devotee of the Lord. Arjuna had some bodily relation with Krishna because the Lord happened to be his maternal cousin. But Bhishma had no such bodily relation. Therefore, the cause of attraction was due to the intimate relation of the soul. Yet, because the relation of the body is very pleasing and natural, the Lord is more pleased when he is addressed as the son of Maharaj Nanda, the son of Yashoda, the lover of Radharani. This affinity by bodily relation with the Lord is another feature of reciprocating loving service with the Lord. Bhishma Dev is conscious of this sweetness of transcendental humor, and therefore he likes to address the Lord as Vijaya Sakhe, Partha Sakhe, etc., exactly like Nandanandana or Yashoda Nandana. The best way to establish our relation in transcendental sweetness is to approach him through his recognized devotees. One should not try to establish the relation directly, semicolon. There must be a medium which is transparent and competent to lead us to the right path. Well, in the verse, Bhishma Dev is addressing Krishna as Krishna. Tatapi ekanta bhakteshu. Ekanta. Tatapi ekanta bhakteshu. The devotees who are ekanta bhaktas. exclusively dependent. Those that are exclusively dependent draw Krishna's special favor. I like Prabhupada's explanation. Uh, um, Supposing there's a father that has many children, and naturally the children of the father have the affection of the father because they're the children of the father. Yet at the same time, if one of the children is especially dependent upon and affectionate to and service minded towards the father shows special affection to that child amongst the many that he also has affection for. And one will not fault the father for that. And similarly, the transcendentalists at least, should not fault Krishna for that. Now, Arjun not only was a relative of Krishna, and that was the basis of his having affection, because Krishna had many relatives that didn't have affection for him, and he didn't have particular affection for them either. Duryodhana, Shishupal, they were family relation-wise similar, from the same royal family. So cousins, first cousins. But the regard that they had for Krishna brought about a reciprocation of Krishna for their regard for him. And that's not a fault. It's natural. It's natural on the material plane, in part because it's natural on the spiritual plane. Now, all of these family relations, after all, they're ephemeral. Now you see it, now you don't. They're not eternal and sat. They're asat. At the same time, the regard that a living entity has for Krishna is very, very special, according to their affection for him. And so, yetam mam prapadyante, tangs tadaiva bhajam yaham, according to their bhajami, according to their worship or their regard for Krishna, he reciprocates. Very natural, no fault. Now back to Bhishma Dev. Although, because he's just established previously that he's the super soul within every living entity, etc., etc. So there's, why does he bother? Why does he put himself to that trouble? Because those living entities are his parts and parcels, like children are the parts and parcels of the Father. And the Father is the source of so many children, unlimited numbers. So he enters into the heart naturally and guides. And how does he guide? Remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness, for starters. Some persons want to forget. Krishna gives forgetfulness. They want a brand of forgetfulness. Krishna gives that forgetfulness brand. And to move from the forgetfulness position to the remembrance position, generally speaking, it's gradual. And why is it gradual? It's gradual because, same as we discussed yesterday, there's affinity for the temporary that we don't let go of so easily. So there we have some shelter, so-called false shelter, in the areas of our material affinity. Jagadananda Pandit, great devotee, very funny, very interesting, very unique in every way. He wrote a book, and his book has to do with his relationship with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and very, very wonderful relationship with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. You know, a little sassy, a little. He would not necessarily do what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wanted. He would do what he wanted. Anyway, in that book, he describes the necessity of putting both feet, in one boat when crossing a river. And he advises, don't try to cross a river putting one foot in one boat and another foot in another boat. Don't try the river of material existence. Don't make that mistake. You get wet, you fall in the river. But people do that, and when people do that, then their progress, spiritual progress, is reduced. And to accelerate that spiritual progress, the shelter taking, it doesn't mean trash things, just seeking happiness in things. You can have things, and those things that you have, to see them, as we heard in previous verses, see them in relation to the Supreme. And because they're in relation to the Supreme, they should be engaged accordingly. Paraphernalia of the Supreme. That was from this nice Chatus, the first of the introduction to the four Chatusloki verses, Tadangam. Paraphernalia meant body itself and the objects of the body. Paraphernalia for the worship of the Supreme Lord. And that, it's easier said than done, but that's the principle. So the principle permits that one could have or not have, depending upon the disposition one may have or not have. And it's fine because the essence is not have or not have. The essence is the relationship with Krishna. And when Krishna takes things away, rather than whine and complain, Krishna's mercy. Back to a few verses ago, misfortune or tribulation. Yudhishthira's tribulation, or our tribulation. So when circumstances shift, and it's no longer what we thought it would be, should be, but it becomes something else, then the boat rocks. Oh, stormy weather. In such circumstance, the Ekanta Bhakta, which is grandfather Bhishma, takes full shelter in the personality of Godhead, because that's what Ekanta Bhaktas do. They have no other shelter. And for those persons that have no other shelter, Krishna is there. He's always there, but Krishna then helps one to feel Krishna is there. I'm thinking of a situation. I don't think I should repeat the details, but one devotee had a calamity upon a calamity upon a calamity. He was going to go for some medical treatment, something, 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 and had an appointment set up for that medical treatment that was going to be a prolonged medical treatment. And just before the medical treatment, he got in a major car accident. A semi truck crashed his car head on. And he broke his ribs and broke his spine, and he couldn't take the medical treatment. He was chuckling, saying, literally, Lord Chaitanya Like Lord Chaitanya's prayers, you can crush me with your embrace. He broke my ribs. It was- So, but because this devotee has a clear, very mature, clear sense of Krishna's shelter, not like it was fun or painless, very painful. I can only imagine a broken spine and broken ribs, getting major medical treatment for something else. So it's not a punishment. It's not fructification of past misdeeds. Why did this happen to me? None of that. So that's an exceptional soul. And here's back to the scene. Grandfather Bhishma is lying on a bed of arrows. And all he wants, besides giving transcendental instructions to Yudhisthira, so Yudhisthira, the tribulation of Yudhisthira is mitigated by his words and his solace, not, like Yudhisthira is mitigating the misery or the difficulty of Grandfather Bhishma. That's not the dynamic. He's doing his role as grandfather, awakening transcendental knowledge of Krishna, and he is appreciating the kindness that Krishna has, that he's come before him, because his coming up is he just wants to have his eyes fixed upon the personality of Godhead, vibrate his holy name as his soul leaves the body. I mean, most of us, that's not how we're going to leave the body. Krishna is going to come and stand before you and smile, and you look into his eyes, and he looks into your eyes, and you say the holy name, and you leave the body and you go to the spiritual realm. And it's not like if it doesn't happen, there's something wrong with you. That Krishna is going to do what Krishna is going to do. But circumstances are sanctioned. In the case of Grandfather Bhishma, specifically orchestrated because of his Ekanta Bhakta position. All that he did was under the indication of the internal potency of Krishna, for Krishna's pleasure. Nothing else. Nothing else. Very complicated, or so many, 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 many relationships, and so many, 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 many duties that are involved in those relationships, and exclusive dedication to pleasing Krishna, including being on the side opposite of the Pandavas, although he knows clearly how dear the Pandavas are to Krishna. And they're on the side of virtue, and Duryodhana is not on the side of virtue, and he takes the side of Duryodhana. It's a it is it, it's a mystery. It's a profound mystery. But at every step, there's one purpose in his consciousness. Krishna is to be pleased. On the battlefield. He's seeing that, as the description in this section. He's seeing Krishna as the chariot driver, Arjuna in the chariot, Krishna's garment sailing behind him in the wind, and his beads of perspiration on his forehead, and the beads of perspiration are dripping the dust that's come to his forehead, and doesn't get better than this. Do you like Bhakti Tirtha Swami? You little Bhakti Tirtha Swami story. You probably know it, but I was visiting him as he was lying at the Institute House with terminal cancer, and Ekavir was over his shoulder as he was lying down because he had big lumps in his chest, and he was massaging those areas because it made the area less painful. It didn't take away the cancer or the pain, but it just mitigated the pain to some degree. And he was, you know, we were having conversation. Radhanath Maharaj was visiting him at that time also, at Bhakti Tirtha Swami's request to be with him up until his departure. And with his classic big smile, lying in that condition, big smile, I very clearly remember, it doesn't get better than this. Great soul. Very, very special, great soul. So Bhishma is a great, great, great soul. One of the 12 Mahajanas. So the lessons are worth hearing again and again and trying to understand his message again and again. So he is here disclosing the partiality from the one who is impartial, or apparent partiality, or something like that. The reciprocation that Krishna extends to those who feel exclusively dependent on him. The material circumstances, just the opposite, attached to the idea of it, false idea of independence, no such thing. So therefore, the illusory circumstance of life that has duality, but even the happiness of the duality is misery. Misery because the fundamental happiness is absent. So a false sense of happiness takes its place in the world of duality. So it doesn't get better than this means mind fixed upon the personality of Godhead in the association of loving devotees, where Krishna Katha and Kirtan, etc., are going on. We may we be so fortunate, whatever the circumstance of the soul leaving the body, or the circumstance of death, the cause, the physical or medical cause, it's fixed consciousness upon the Supreme. And Krishna's reciprocation is going to be what it's going to be. Bhishma Devi is coming directly. Not only coming directly, but coming with the Pandavas, because Bhishma Dev wanted the Pandavas to rule. If Bhishma Dev wanted the Pandavas to rule, why is he fighting against the Pandavas? By the will of the Supreme. And there's this reason, that reason, the other reason, external, but the internal is by the will of the Supreme. And for those that aren't devotees hearing something like that, oh, that's clever. The catch-all. Krishna sanctioned, or Krishna wanted, and so it was what it was. Because does that mean, so it was one of Purni Radha's questions, does that mean that devotees abdicate their free will? No. When they do what Krishna wants, it's not an abdication of free will. They don't become morons or robots. They're lovingly doing what Krishna wants. And how do they know what Krishna wants? Well, they may know or they may not know, externally. In other words, Bhishma's fighting with Duryodhana wasn't like Krishna sent him a text message when nobody was looking, and he read the text message. Oh, he wants me to be opposite the Pandavas. Okay, because that's what Krishna wanted. But the prompt can be in other ways, and he did what he did by the desire of Krishna, and that was his free will, ekanta bhakta. Nice section of the Bhagavatam, very elevating. Discussion behind you.
Um, Maharaj, you said at the end, will of the Lord, he may know, he may not know. So basically, it's desire to do Krishna's will. That's what it matters than whether he knew it or not, right?
Rather than what?
Rather than whether he knew Krishna's will. Doesn't matter, but his desire to do Krishna's will was not intense.
Well, more intense than what?
And whether he wants to know what is Krishna's will or not. Like you said, he may not know what everything.
You're massaging that comment. He may know, may not know.
So he's getting more loving on a loving relationship
Yes, yes, yes,
than whether I'm doing Krishna's will, I know Krishna's will.
yes, 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 yes. So now this is high. It's like, 501 Krishna consciousness. How does somebody who's intimately connected with Krishna know what is Krishna's will? For us, it's Guru Sadhu Shastra. That's like, you know, entry level. But persons that aren't at entry level, but they're at very elevated level, how do they know? Well, they're moved by Krishna's indication to them. So the thing that's unwavering is what Krishna wants, what's pleasing to Krishna. And then they may get a prompt. Now, does it register to them? Krishna wants me to do this. That's what appears on my screen, my instruction from Krishna screen. It's Krishna wants me to fight on behalf of Duryodhana. Not necessarily but it's the one thing that doesn't change for the Ekanta Bhakta is I'm totally dependent upon Krishna. And we're not there. So we have to be guided. We have, guardrails, or like, riding a bicycle with little training wheels. So you can't tip. You can tip, but you can't go too far because you got training wheels. But for someone who's very ekanta bhakta, all other shelters are gone. The indication that comes to that person, it's prompt from Super Soul. I mean, there's so many examples where Krishna wanted, and so it happened. I mean, because I've been discussing this or covering this topic with the Chinese devotees, when it came to Krishna deciding to leave, he cooked up a plan how he could leave and take with him or send back to the heavenly realm the demigods that had taken birth and were now members of the Yadu dynasty and invincible, so they had to destroy themselves. So it's not like it appeared on their screen, the mind, oh, Krishna wants us to go to Prabhas and get drunk and smash each other. That's what Krishna wants. So let's go, guys. But the prompt is from Super Soul, Krishna's will acting in the way that Krishna's will acts. So they may know, they may not know. That's going further with that what you're pondering. They may know, they may not know. They're doing Krishna's will because there's one thing for the perfected souls. And so many examples where it seems out of character for a devotee X to do something, say something. It's completely out of character. So when that's completely out of character, what's on their radar screen? Are they saying Krishna wants me to do something that's out of character, so I'm going to do it because Krishna wants it? They may know, they may not know. But one thing doesn't change. It's transcendental. And again, oh, that's clever. Just whitewash it. It's Krishna's Leela. Yeah, it has to be when the real thing is there, then it's Krishna's Leela. And living entities or Krishna's expansions included Balaram, etc. Like Balaram for 1 year didn't recognize that all the cowherd boys and all the calves were Krishna. He didn't recognize it. He's the all-knowing supreme personality Godhead. So did that appear on his screen? Krishna wants me to not know. But he's just got one thing. And then towards the end of the year, a little light went on. There's the green Yogamaya curtain pulled back. And okay, wait a minute. But it was the same thing for the whole year that he wasn't recognizing, that he started to recognize. The affection that these parents have for these boys is like their affection for Krishna. 2 + 2 = 4. It's not their boys. It's Krishna. Looking like, talking like, growing like, or transforming his features as if the boy in the course of a year grows and features change and etc. etc. They may know, they may not know. But one thing doesn't change. So you had something.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj. I want to share one thought, and
So let's do without the sound system because funky.
I want to share one thought on one side. No.
Okay.
Children comes from that it's very rare of the quality young very honest of their what
Mm.
you seek but some fear vulnerability life's day-to-day challenges. It's
such a going through this very last stage of life. At the same time, the Bhagavatam also has this golden stories of um, say Ajamila and Nirmala, which begins their life in a very wonderful lifestyle. But stumble. They get off the focus achieved.
Mm.
So the reason because now is that essentially in this in that don't lives and visionary business. So Java like someone else and someone other visions
Around the Bhishma's time?
around what happened visions.
Is that something you deduced or something that's explicit in the commentary? Okay. Whether it was remote in time or more recent than remote in time is it's an interesting detail, but it doesn't modify the power, the force of that message because it can apply certainly to somebody in a modern context, totally modern context. Somebody in a fortunate bad association became unfortunate, but impressions were there, and by circumstance one may become fortunate again. Nahabakramanashosti pratyavayana vidyate swalpamapyasya dharmasya trayate mahatobayat. Others, yes,
When Yamana is instructing his messengers when they come to take the China, that's when he speaks the word, the 1200.
yes.
Bhishmadev is all. And Bhishmadev was like Dwapar Yuga. So Bhishmadev was already mentioned when he was instructing Yamuna during the Ramana attack. She was saying that he's probably after Bhishmadev.
Not necessarily. It could have been long, 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 and he just in the list where Bhishma Dev is also listed. Like the others are listed. They're not necessarily contemporary. It could be Bhishma Dev contemporary. So if Bhishma Dev's contemporary and a Jamila is in the list and the circumstances in relation to a Jamila, then it might be a logical conclusion might be it's around the time of Bhishma Dev because Bhishma Dev's in the list of Mahajans. Then, on the other hand, Yamaraj could see the future and Bhishma Dev's in the list. Something else. Yes.
One principle is we should never force the spiritual teacher or superiors for anything. We can request, one should not force my behavior or anything else. Another contrary principle is
Another what?
contrary principle. Something
Contrary principle?
the same principle is when Prabhupada says the duck which makes more noise gets the feed. So how to reconcile these two principles now?
Well, somebody makes noise doesn't mean they get what they want. And supposing they get what they want, it doesn't mean they get what they really need besides what they want. Rupa Goswami's discussion or statement in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu of the person who's eligible for higher stages of bhakti is one who has intense desire to have it. But the intense desire to have it doesn't necessarily mean quacking loud.
I thought intense desire is volume. What you were saying is the same thing.
Laulium.
Yeah. Okay.
Here's a little Prabhupada story I'm going to end. Morning walk, Henry Street, Brooklyn. And on one particular morning, we went to a park. I forget the name of the park. Something park. We were going for a walk. And, Prabhupada's discussing and everyone's crowding around. So he saw a pond over to the left. So what's that? It's a pond, Prabhupada. So he walked over to the pond. And there were some ducks. And the ducks saw us coming, and the ducks started quacking. And Prabhupada asked, does anybody have any prasadam? And somebody had some prasadam. And then they threw the prasadam. The ducks caught the prasadam, or what landed in the water, and then they gobbled up the prasadam. And then Prabhupada turned and started walking back to the path and said, what lesson have we learned today? Everyone's like, what? And then he said, the duck that quacks the loudest gets the bread. But, that's different than what you want and what you need. And it's not that because one jumps up and down saying, I want, that they're going to get what they want. It may help. I want. But it's just certainly not a guarantee that I want and I just scream I want and you get what you want because you screamed it. There's other factors. Okay, Srila Prabhupada ki. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki.
Prabhupada ki.